Okay, I'm here at Picinc with Dennis Crowley from Foursquare. Dennis, you were speaking today about location-based social media, and your site has been a fairly much a phenomenon in the last couple of years. Tell us how you're getting on.
Yeah, so it's really busy with Foursquare. So we're about 32 employees now and almost 3.5 million users, and we've been around a little bit less than a year and a half, and we're still growing like a weed. So it's been very exciting so far.
You've worked on a number of startups, I heard you say in your presentation. When did the switch flick in your head that you thought, okay, location-based software, that's got to be something that's going to work?
Well, I think it's it's been since I moved to New York, and it's been less about location-based software and more about like building things that make cities easier to use and more interesting, specifically New York. And it just happens like that whole genre of software is based around location. But it's like it's taking location tools and taking social media and taking things like city guides and rolling them all into one and try to make really interesting projects that use all three elements.
The site has rolled out across the world, and it's recently, I suppose, in the last 6 months, come to Ireland. Where are you strongest, and what way will it develop in the years to come?
Yeah, so about 60% of the usage is in the U.S. and about 40% of it's international, which is great. It's much higher than we expected, and we see pockets of activity all over the world. So obviously, Europe is really active, but we see pockets in Indonesia. We see pockets in Kuala Lumpur and in parts of Japan, and it's really kind of crazy to see it picking up all over the world. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to break the stats out on a country by country basis. We've just been so busy with everything else, we haven't gotten to that yet. So I don't have numbers like Ireland versus the UK versus the US, but we'll have those soon.
What sort of activity do you notice when Foursquare becomes active? And I'm like in the likes of Manhattan and the other boroughs in New York, I'm sure it's very active. And what sort of interesting things have you noticed?
It's just Foursquare is really good at bringing people together. And so when you get a critical mass of people in a relatively small, dense area, really interesting things happen. And good examples are airports, for example. People check into airports to announce that they're leaving or they're arriving. And sometimes you're at an airport for 3 hours, and so if you check your phone, you often see that there's people there with you, and it's like a good way of servicing friends. You do the same thing like in neighborhoods. When you get a critical mass of people checking in a given neighborhood, for example, like the East Village in New York, you have this general sense of presence that friends of yours are always within 3 or 4 blocks away, and it makes meeting up with them much more interesting.
Social media is very competitive, and most people are on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn for professional connection. How do you continue to, I suppose, how do you strive to make the site sticky? And I know Google have latched onto with Google Places, or Facebook with Facebook Places. How do you meet that competitive challenge and keep the site relevant?
Yeah, I think it's about finding a way to be interesting and finding our niche here. So we're not trying to be Facebook and we're not trying to be Twitter. Instead, we're trying to do something a little bit different, which is bridge the gap between the things that you experience online and try to help people bring those things offline so they can have better and more interesting experiences in the real world. I think Facebook is fantastically good at sharing things online, and we're becoming really good at helping people share things offline, like to get together with groups of friends, to discover new experiences, to discover new places. And I think that's the niche that we're carving out.
Twitter's been very good at with the API of letting other developers latch into the essence of their network. Have you guys done that to any success? Or?
Yeah, sure. So one of the first things that we built at Foursquare was an API so that other developers could start playing with their data set. And it's worked out really well. We've been able to get a large number of applications built on the API. Everything from dating services to shopping services to alternative clients for the iPhone and for Android. And so yeah, it's just like when Twitter released their API, they had developers were able to do the things that the Twitter team was too busy to actually build. And the same thing's happening with Foursquare. We let people play with the API, and they end up building all the data visualizations, all the clients, all the features that we haven't had the time to build yet. So it's great.
So, of all your users, I'm sure that you've got you've got a hit list of a really intense. Who's the biggest geek on Foursquare?
I don't know. We have a lot of really, really active users, people that are almost too active. They check in to every single place in the mall or every train station they happen to be in. It's funny, in our office, we have, there's almost like little office competitions as who can be the mayor of the office or the mayor of the bar across the street or the burrito place 2 blocks away. And, even within, just our office, those competitions are pretty heavy.
How do businesses interact with you from a commercial perspective? So if I, like, say in Dublin, I've a restaurant, and I'm very interested in interacting with you for the good of my business. How would I do that?
So businesses can come to Foursquare and and claim their businesses. So there's we have this URL set up. It's foursquare.com/businesses. And if you own a coffee shop or a pizza place, you can come there and say, this is my spot. And then once you claim it, you can start adding specials, and you get access to a dashboard that says how many people have checked in here, and gives you some tips on how to encourage people to check in. And basically local merchants get out of it the ability to come up with targeted promotions to reward people that check in and share information about their place. And then they can also look at some of the stats and hopefully find some trends about who their best customers are and who their best customers potentially could be in the future.
You're just 18 months old. Finally, if you were to look at Foursquare in another 18 months, so when it's 3 years old, where do you think it'll be then?
I don't know. We have this very large and very deep and ambitious roadmap of all the things that we want to build, and so I'm hoping that we get to build all those things. Like, that's the whole reason that we're doing a lot of this stuff, is to build the products that we've had in our head for a long time. We're just over 3 million users now. Like, in 2 years, how many? I have no idea where we're going to be. But we're following a similar growth path to what Facebook looked like in the early days and what Twitter looked like in the early days. So, there's a good shot that we could look like one of those services 2 years from now.
Thanks for your time.
Cool. Thank you so much.